Now, if you're a Windows guy and you're just starting to convert over to Linux, you're probably going to get confused with some of the basic stuff that you're expecting. So let's try to get through a few of the basic things. One of the main things you're going to want to do is look at things like memory. So this is done quite easily using the free space and then dash. And then depending on the sizes you want to look at, you have different switches. So B for bytes, M for megabytes, and so on and so forth. So here you can see we get an output of total amount of RAM used, the total amount of swap file used. So these are your basic Linux commands to check RAM. Now, these aren't the only ones that can be used, and there's plenty of other packages. In fact, we'll hit on one of them in a little bit. But I just want to show you that that's the example. Now, the other one, as you can see, is to list disk space. Now, this will also give you any and all loopback adapters in this case, so this can be a little bit confusing. But if we look at just the disks, everything that starts SD, so SDA, so disk A, disk B, disk C, etc., are all there. And you can also see whether it's a disk or if it's a partition on the disk. So here you can see I've got a boot disk, which in this case is the SDA, and then I've got a primary partition on that disk. Now, if I want to just grep or use the equivalent of what would be the find string to return only the disks, you can see that narrows it down a little bit. And now you can see we just have the disk output and then the partitions associated with. So in this case, I only have one disk with a partition, the rest remain unformatted. So you have the different outputs. And that's a good example of how to get started with looking and viewing disk information. Now, another one that you might want to look at is, let's say, where is my CPU or where is my RAM going? Now, there's the out-of-the-box top function. So if you run the top command, you can see CPU, memory, swap, and the process that's using it. Now, whilst the out-of-the-box function does work very nicely, frankly, I don't find it a very friendly interface, and I tend to resort to a third-party one already. So if you go to the apt-get install and then install a program called htop, so instead of top it's just htop, and if you then run it, I get, at least from my point of view, a much friendlier interface. So I can see the number of CPU cores, the individual cores. I can also do things like search, filter, sort by, so I can kind of like look at it more in how you would expect a task manager to look potentially, and it gives you a nice colorful interface that you can use, and it gives you that, I would call it, warm glowy feeling that what you're looking at is a little bit more interactive, because white and black is not always great. Now, if you found this video useful, give us a thumbs up. If you didn't, you're probably a Linux guy, and as always, subscribe for more content.